Australia, what's your favourite sport?
Football.
Snack?
Pies.
Animal?
Kangaroos.
And what's your favourite car, Australia?
Holden.
Let me see, that's football, meat pies, kangaroos, and Holden cars, huh?
Right.
Well, you sure sound like Australia to me.
We are.
Well, then you better tell me again, because I just might forget.
We love football, meat pies, kangaroos, and Holden cars. Football, meat pies, kangaroos, and Holden cars.
That's football, meat pies, kangaroos, and Holden cars.
Football and meat pies, kangaroos, and Holden cars.
I think you better tell me again.
We love football, meat pies, kangaroos, and Holden cars.
In case you're wondering, this commercial is brought to you by football, meat pies, kangaroos, and Australia's own car.
They go together underneath the southern stars. Football and meat pies, kangaroos, and Holden cars.
Makes sense to me!
Football, meat pies,
G'day guys and welcome to Aussie English. My objective here is to teach you guys the English spoken down under. So whether you want to speak like a fair dinkum Aussie, or you just want to understand what the flippin' hell we're on about when we're having a yarn, you've come to the right place. So sit back, grab a cuppa and enjoy Aussie English. Alrighty, you mob, how's it going? Welcome to this episode of Aussie English, the number one podcast for anyone and everyone wanting to learn Australian English. Guys, it is great to have you with me today. I hope you enjoyed that little intro scene there at the start. That was an Australian ad from the 1970s. And it's related to today's content because I will talk later about Australian culture and the history of the Aussie pie, you know, with a big dollop of dead horse or tomato sauce on top of it. Hopefully there's no dead horse in your pie. Anyway, guys, welcome to this episode. It's great to have you here. It is a late Wednesday night at the moment when I'm recording this. It's about 11 p.m. at night, so I'm up late. I'm burning the midnight oil. I am working late at night because Noah and Kel are asleep. It's been really good. Noah's about to turn 2 months old and he's getting much more active. I've really noticed in the last 2 weeks, since about week 6, that he is much more interactive. He looks at you. He's starting to smile. He's not really laughing as such yet. Not a proper ha 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 kind of laugh. More like a that kind of thing. But yeah, he's in control of his sounds. He's also trying to talk a little bit to you. So every now and then he'll just start making noises and, yeah, it's really cute. So I'm looking forward to see him develop rapidly, in the near future because it seems to just be accelerating, right? Just picking up pace, getting faster and faster. Before we get into today's content, before we get into the meat of today's episode on pies. Get it? Meat? I wanted to talk to you about restructuring of the Aussie English classroom and what I am now calling the Aussie English Academy. I have decided to get rid of the trial, okay? So there are no more $1 trials, guys. There's so much content in there now that it is just the fee as soon as you get in, okay? Because I want members who sign up to take it seriously. It seemed like there were a lot of people signing up and then forgetting that they'd signed up because it was so cheap. Wanted to get rid of that and just have it as a flat fee. On top of that, I've divided up the Aussie English Academy. So now, the Aussie English Academy includes the expression courses, of which there are 80 of them now. Like, it's a ridiculous amount, guys. It's a ridiculous amount of content that's taken me years to produce, but there are 80 courses just for the expression episodes like this one in the Aussie English classroom. There is the Aussie English interview course, which has 17 lessons with other Australian speakers of English. There is the Australian History and Culture course, which includes 30 lessons related to Australian history and culture. Then we have the Natural English Conversation course, which includes all the dialogues. There are 23 lessons in there. And guys, every single week, as I do these expression episodes, I add to each of these courses, right? So they get bigger and bigger the longer you're in there. On top of this, I've included, as you may have seen if you're in there, 3 speaking calls now per week with Renata. Now, guys, there aren't many of you going to this, so I really encourage you guys, if you're in the Aussie English classroom and the time works out, go to the 6, 7 and 8 p.m. classes with Renata where you can practice your speaking about a wide range of topics in English 3 times a week for half an hour, okay? Monday, Wednesday and Friday usually. And then on top of this, guys, in the Aussie English Academy, you obviously have access to all of the premium podcast content. And I will add that I'm currently investing a lot of money and a lot of time working with my IT guy, Praveen, and his team on the next academy, okay? So we're going to completely redo the website and we're going to turn these into apps for your phone, and there's just going to be a lot more in there. It's going to be a lot more user-friendly. I'm going to design it with quite a few of the members in the classroom at the moment. They're going to be my beta testers, so I'm really looking forward to working with them. But it's all in an effort to really help you learn as much culture and history of Australia as possible, improve your English at the same time, and speak confidently. So they're my main goals. Lastly, I'll mention that the Australian pronunciation course, the effortless phrasal verb course, and the spoken English course are now all sold separately, okay? They are not included in the academy. This was because I found a lot of people weren't using them who were in the academy, and I had a lot of requests from people wanting to just get access to that content, particularly the phrasal verb course and the Australian pronunciation course, okay? So they are all separate now. The last thing I'll mention, if you signed up and joined the Aussie English classroom previously, you will still have access to everything. But going on from now in the future, anyone who signs up, this is the structure, this is the way things will be, okay? So that's just how it is. I wanted to tell you about it, guys. I'm more than willing to hear your feedback on how I've got the system set up. I'm not perfect, but I'm doing my best to kind of cater to everyone's needs, okay? And there's so much content in there. So many people were getting lost and overwhelmed. Hopefully this restructure will help. Anyway, that was a big intro. I really, really appreciate you sticking with it and being patient. So the Aussie joke, guys. The Aussie joke. I've got a good one. I've got a pie joke for you. What do sharks eat for dessert? What do sharks eat for dessert? Octopi. Octopi. It's horrible. All right, so octopi, here spelled OCTO-PIE, is a pun with the word octopi, which is the plural for octopus, right? The 8-legged mollusk that lives in the ocean. So what do sharks eat for dessert? They eat octopi, right? So multiple octopus. So it's a pun there with the word pie, and we're, taking it out of the word octopi. Octopi. Pie jokes. So today's expression, guys, is to have one's fingers in many pies, or to have a finger in every pie. You might hear variations on this expression, but this was suggested by Alida in the Aussie English classroom. Thank you very much, Alida. She's from Brazil, one of my students. It was a good suggestion, and I had a lot of fun putting this episode together. All right, so let's go through the definitions in the expression to have one's fingers in many pies, or to have a finger in every pie. So the verb to have, now this has a bucket load of different definitions, but the most common ones are obviously to possess something, to own something, to hold something. So like right now, if I pick up my mug, I have my coffee mug in my hand, right? I possess it. I'm holding it. But in this case, to have one's fingers in many pies, have here means to cause to be in a particular state or condition. So it's like you have placed your hand inside of a pie and you have your hand there. That is where it is. You've caused it to be in that particular condition or state, right? I've got my hand. I have my hand at the moment in front of my head, okay? Tapping my head. I have my hand here. A finger. A finger is obviously one of the 10 appendages that you have on your 2 hands, right? You've got your thumbs, which quite often people are saying, oh, they're not fingers, but I mean, come on. They're on your hand. They're appendages. They're fingers. You got your index finger. You've got your rude finger, your ring finger, and your little finger, or pinky finger, okay? So they're the sort of names we use for the different fingers in English. Many is a large number of something, right? So some people have many more fingers than just the 10, right? There are some people who have 6 on each hand, maybe even 7. I remember seeing a doco about a group of people in Brazil, a family that has that gene in their family where a whole bunch of people have 6 fingers on each hand. And lastly, a pie. Now, this can obviously be a dessert, as you would find in America, where it is usually a dessert made from pastry. It's sweet and it has fruit inside of it. But in Australia, most often, if someone says they have a pie or they want to eat a pie, they're talking about a meat pie. So still made from pastry, but inside it's usually meat and gravy and vegetables, right? A meat pie. So if you have your fingers in many pies, or if you have a finger in every pie, what do you think this means? It means that you're involved in many, sometimes too many, different things, right? So you're involved in a lot of different activities, or maybe you know about a lot of different things going on, whether it's events or gossip. You have a good sense of what's happening, right? So you're involved in a lot. So the origin of this expression: when we see or smell a freshly baked pie, we often have that temptation to taste it, right? So this idiom probably originates with the idea that someone might sneak into the kitchen, shove their finger inside a freshly baked pie in order to taste it, discreetly. And if they are especially greedy, they might try to put a finger in every single pie, right? If there are multiple pies in the kitchen. And the phrase was used by Shakespeare in his play Henry VIII, in which Cardinal Wolsey is described as being too involved in other people's business. Quote, "The devil speed him, no man's pie is freed from this ambitious finger." All right, so let's go through some examples of how I would use the expression to have a finger in every pie or to have fingers in many pies. So, for example, my uncle has always been a bit of a businessman. And he's bought and owned businesses, he's grown them, and then he tends to sell them, and that's sort of been his career. So he's always been an entrepreneur with a creative flair who obviously never wanted to work for someone and instead work for himself and do his own thing. So he often had many things going on at once. He was spinning many plates, so he might be selling prosthetic knees to surgeons one minute, then the next minute I remember he built a business selling pre-made pizzas to supermarkets like Coles or Woolies. And so because he's involved in a number of different businesses at the same time, he's got his fingers in many pies, right? He's got his finger in every single pie. So he's doing many different things simultaneously. Example number 2. So at school, I was a kid who was never obsessed with one subject. I used to love French. I used to love biology. I also dabbled a bit in maths and chemistry, although they weren't really, my favorite subjects. And on top of this, I also loved sports as well. So I had my fingers in many pies. I was interested and involved in a lot of subjects. And at school, regarding sport, it was mandatory to train in a winter sport for 2 terms of the year and in a summer sport for 2 terms of the year. This was every single student. They had to do this unless they had an exemption. So in summer, I used to train tennis twice a week, and then on weekends, we'd have to compete against other schools. And then during winter, it'd be the same thing, but it'd be soccer. But on top of this, I was interested in sword fighting. So I also trained and competed in the sport of fencing. And that was extra. I didn't have to do that. It wasn't mandatory to do a third sport, but I was interested and I just liked being an active kid. So because I was involved in so many sports, I had my fingers in many pies. I had a finger in every pie. And within fencing too, there were 3 main styles that you could compete in. There was foil, épée, and saber. These 3 different sword fighting types and different swords that had different rules. And I used to like dabbling in all of them, except saber was my favorite. So in terms of fencing styles, I also had my fingers in many pies. Example number 3. I I used to be studying at the Museum of Victoria in Melbourne, where I was doing my master's degree, and then I did my PhD as well in biology. So while I was there were many people whose jobs included many different tasks. So they might have to manage the lab and make sure machines are running and working fine, and that the supplies are always full and stocked. But they also might have to teach students and write and correct papers, as well as maybe work in the museum collections and make sure specimens are organised correctly for all the other students and researchers that examine them. So these kinds of people had their fingers in many pies. They weren't specialised, but instead they had to do many different jobs. They were involved in a lot of different things at the museum, so they had to wear many hats. And one moment they might be a lab coordinator, the next they might be managing students. They had their fingers in many pies. So hopefully now, guys, you understand the expression to have your finger in every pie or to have your fingers in many pies. You'll often hear these kinds of variations, and it means to be involved in many, or often too many, different things, okay? And you could be doing multiple activities or going to multiple events, studying multiple things. You're involved in a lot of different things, okay? So let's go through the little listen and repeat exercise here, guys, where you can practice your pronunciation. So listen and repeat after me, guys. If you're working on your Aussie accent, obviously pay attention to how I pronounce every single little bit here as best you can. If you're not working on an Aussie accent, that's cool too. Go with the accent you're doing. Just use the words that I'm saying as a prompt for you to practice your pronunciation. Okay, let's go. To have. To have one's. To have one's fingers. To have one's fingers in. To have one's fingers in many. To have one's fingers in many pies. 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 Good job. Now there's a bit of connected speech going on there, so pay attention to that, guys. To have one's fingers in many pies. Now we'll go through and contract I have got my fingers in many pies. You have got your fingers in many pies, okay? It sounds much more natural to contract that together. Listen and repeat after me. I've got my fingers in many pies. You've got your fingers in many pies. He's got his fingers in many pies. She's got her fingers in many pies. We've got our fingers in many pies. They've got their fingers in many pies. It's got its fingers in many pies. Good work. A little bit more on pronunciation there. You might notice the T at the end of the word got. There's a few interesting situations here in terms of pronunciation. So when I say I've got my, you've got your, I don't actually pronounce the T. It's a stop consonant, so I don't release it because there's a consonant after it in the word my or the word your, right? So you'll hear I've got my, you've got your. When it comes to words after it starting with H, like he's got his and she's got her, you might notice there I don't pronounce the H and the T turns into a T flap. So it's really got his, but because I speak quickly, the T becomes a T flap because it's not on the start of syllable that's emphasized. And because the H disappears too and there's a vowel after it, it becomes that T flap. So you'll hear, he's got his, she's got her. It also happens for we've got our because there's no consonant after the T. So again, it's a T flap. Interesting, right? So anyway, pay attention to those things, right? The D's, the T's, those kinds of stop consonants at the ends of words often don't get released, so you might find it hard to hear them. And then letters like H at the start of words can often disappear in linked speech, okay? So I love including that sort of stuff because I feel like understanding it will let you understand native speakers when they speak quickly, and also it'll help you sound like a native speaker when you speak using these tips. Anyway, guys, this has been a pretty long episode. I'm going to get into the Aussie English fact in the next episode where we'll be talking about the history of the humble Aussie pie, okay? So it has an interesting story. I hope to see you in there. Thank you again for joining me, guys, and I'll also see you in the Aussie English Academy, hopefully. See you guys. G'day, mate. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Aussie English Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to get access to all of my other content and level up your English even faster, go to aussieenglish.com.au where you can get access to the premium podcast, you can join the Aussie English Academy, or you can sign up for my other courses. Have a great one, mate, and I'll see you soon.